In US v. Ghislaine Maxwell closings, Menninger trashes survivors then Comey praises them. Jury gets case by Matthew Russell Lee Patron song video ruling BBC, Decrypt, light read, radio, podcast. SDNY Courthouse, December 20. Ghislaine Maxwell, charged with sex trafficking and other charges, is nearing the end of trial that started on November 29, after the November 23 final pre-trial conference. Vlog here. On December 18 in a rare Saturday charging conference, Inner City Press learned a bit more about Maxwell's legal team. Laura Menninger came and left, presumably preparing her closing argument for December 20. On Sunday, December 19, with the draft charge still not in the docket, also Maureen Comey wrote in jointly with Maxwell and her legal team stating that with regard to the closing arguments, the public interest in viewing the parties' presentations is marginal. Inner City Press immediately filed opposition to Judge Nathan, calling this inaccurate and insulting, and asking for unsealing, and a public call-in line. Inner City Press litter here and here. On the morning of December 20, also Allison Moe gave the government's closing argument. Inner City Press live tweeted here, podcast here, 8:30 a.m. live stream here. Then, the defense rebuttal, live tweeted here, podcast here. Maxwell's lawyer Menninger, I am not here to defend Jeffrey Epstein. He is not my client. The U.S. presented evidence like a sensational tabloid. Private island, photos, these were things that Epstein did, perhaps, his crimes. But Ghislaine Maxwell is not Epstein. Menninger, where are the other 37,000 photographs? Who was in them? You don't know. They didn't bring you those photos, there were folders and binders, but they brought you the most innocuous photos of a couple that was once together. Menninger, this is straight up sensationalism, Your Honor. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, there's the lack of evidence. Jane hired Robert Glassman 2 weeks before she spoke to the FBI in 2019. The lawyers like Boyce Schiller helped set up the Epstein Victims Fund. Menninger, then there's the manipulation piece. We'll go through the stories of each witness. The stories have changed. Caroline had a lawyer in 2008, a story about Epstein and Sarah Kellen, who she also sued without mentioning Ghislaine Maxwell. Menninger, where are your boots that you say they bought you? We had to ask those questions. The truth was manipulated over time. They've made Ghislaine Maxwell to be Cruella de Vil and the Devil Wears Prada all rolled up into one. Menninger, the pilot told you Jane was a fully mature woman. Ghislaine didn't hire her to travel. The U.S. said she was sometimes in the room when it happened, but Jane said she wasn't sure. Menninger, Jane said she went to Epstein's house every week, but no one took the stand to say she spent time with Ghislaine. Who are these relatives? Annie's mom came. She said she never spoke to Maxwell. Menninger, Larry the pilot said Jane was fully mature. No pilot testified he saw Carolyn, or Kate, or Annie. There was not culture of silence. You just got the sound of silence. One got a two-time burglar with an axe to grind. Menninger, they said you'd learn Ghislaine was in the room, but Jane can't remember. And there's no motive. They say a happy, educated woman in her 30s would end her career as a facilitator of sexual abuse. But where's the evidence? Epstein was a manipulator. Menninger, do you know Ghislaine's lifestyle before Epstein, and after? Maybe it was Jeffrey who needed Ghislaine and her connection, and not the other way around. Menninger, I want to talk about Jane's age. Her father died at 13, tragic, but she's applying to go to an arts camp that cost $4,000 per person. They didn't even apply for financial aid. Menninger, we see her travel records. This person who says he was indigent. She traveled to Italy. There's a flight I'll show you, slides withheld from press and public, that shows Jane flew at earliest at 16. Menninger, Jane got her dates wrong, in a case that's about dates, and about travel. This homeless Jane, traveling all over. She says she sang for Mike Wallace's 80th birthday, but she was 17 by then. She got it wrong. Menninger, the government just said, we'll assume your first time to New York wasn't the Lion King data. Dr. Loftus said this is unlikely, this unremembering. Menninger, now let's talk about the boots. She said the government didn't ask for them in 2006. You'll have the boots with you back in the deliberation room. You'll see how worn they are. Menninger, where is the chef from the ranch? Where are her diaries? What you got is a photograph of the front and back of a diary, and few pages, but not the rest. Miss Farmer told you she met Boyce Schiller when she was going to be a witness in Robert's case. Menninger, Kate filled out a U-Visa application for exceptional people. She said she is exceptional. She's a music therapist. She says she's using a pseudonym because of her child, but she used her own name in court after Epstein's death. Menninger, Kate claims she met Ghislaine Maxwell in London when she was younger than 17. Said the house with the red door. Look at it. Across from the Nag's Head pub. Slide withheld from press and public. Menninger, let's talk about Carolyn. She says she saw a photograph of Ghislaine Maxwell pregnant, but no one else saw this. Money. The first time Maxwell is accused of anything by Caroline was during the compensation process. Inner City Press at Inner City Press middle. 3 hours. Menninger, let's talk about Sean, her ex-boyfriend, with his felony convictions. Caroline tried to minimize her drug abuse, but Sean told you they were abusing marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy and other drugs. They shared a phone, calls from Kellen and Epstein. Menninger, let's talk about Dr. Rocchio, the ultimate victim apologist. She's not trained to question accusers' accounts. There was no evidence Ghislaine Maxwell groomed anyone. Kate was dating a man Maxwell's age. Menninger, the government has no basis to say that Ghislaine Maxwell wrote the document about her relationship with Epstein, told in the third person. There's no proof. Menninger, and why didn't Virginia Roberts testify? If she could corroborate what Caroline told you, don't you think she would have? Why would a proper Oxford-educated woman do this? Menninger, Larry the pilot said sure he signed a non-disclosure agreement. People don't want talk about famous people flying on the plane, like Bill Clinton and John Glenn. Menninger, Epstein put his helicopter in the name of Air Ghislaine. That would correspond to the $7 million. Rich people do that. Epstein was generous. He was building a lodge at Interlochen that was handicapped accessible. Menninger, certainly no one from JP Morgan told you what the money was for. Judge Nathan, Ms. Menninger, we're just going to take a real quick stretch break. Ghislaine Maxwell stands up, stretches, sits down. Menninger, Mr. Alessi told you when women other than Ghislaine visited, he would take her photo down. Oops, I got ahead of myself. Menninger say, check out the flight logs for yourself. Menninger, Mr. Alessi was not doing a good job. Does being a tough boss make you an enforcer of a code of silence? He doesn't really authenticate the black address book. Where are the other staff? Menninger, Mr. Alessi told you a story that was not true. That he broke in to help someone, but it was to steal a gun. He broke in twice. You can't trust this man's word. Menninger, memory doesn't work like a tape recorder, that you could rewind and just hit play. None of these interviews were recorded. They all had a plan to get money. Menninger, the government would ask again and again, are you sure there was no sexual abuse in New Mexico? Dr. Dubin was solid on what she did not have the group sex alleged. Menninger, counts 2 and 4 rely on Jane entirely. If you don't believe her, drop the counts. Count 6 relies on Carolyn. If you don't believe her, drop the count. Menninger, Ghislaine is being tried here for being with Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe it was the bigger mistake of her life, but it is not a crime. Acquit her. Judge Nathan, let's take a break. Then the rebuttal by Comey in charge. Live tweeted here. In USV. Ghislaine Maxwell, now also Maureen Comey's rebuttal summation, with all slides and demonstratives withheld from press and public. Inner City Press challenged. Comey, Ghislaine Maxwell touched 3 witnesses' breasts. The defense tried to get you to look way through the massive amount of evidence Miss Mo walked you through this morning. All slides and demonstratives withheld from public and press. Comey, you saw it in this exhibit, withheld. Who needs that many massages? She was in the room, she knew. The $30 million is we molested kids together money. Comey, people who prey on children do not leave behind documents. The defendant was not walking out of massage rooms and writing a memo. Today I touched Jane's breasts. Comey, look at the flight logs. We'd like it. Epstein flying to New Mexico, then leaving a year later with Miss Maxwell. Miss Menninger was trying to mislead you. Comey, the defense's own expert Professor Loftus said, some things you never forget, moments that change your life. Imagine you had to remember Thanksgiving from years ago. Turkey happens every time. Comey, there is not a shred of evidence that a group of lawyers got together and made up a story about Maxwell. The lawyers got their money before this trial started. Comey, Why would the ex-boyfriends come here and lie to you? And Alessa, the defense tried to dirty him up, but he admitted he stole. He has no reason to lie. Also Comey, if they wanted to frame Maxwell they would have put way deeper in number. They testified for justice. The defendant is guilty. Judge Nathan: Thank you, Ms. Comey. I will now read the charge. Programming note: during reading of the jury charge, a copy of which Inner City Press put on document cloud, ran to cover proceeding in CIA Vault 7 leaks case of Joshua Schultz. Small world. He complained about delay getting back to MDC because of Maxwell. Judge Nathan has reached page 50 of 83 of the charge. When Jane was under the age of 17, Maxwell participated in multiple group sexual encounters with Epstein and Jane. While read out continues, we'll tweet into the thread counts and penalties per SDNY. Counts. Potential sentences. Count 1. Conspiracy to entice a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years. Count 2. Enticing a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years. Count 3. Conspiracy to transport a minor with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, which carries a maximum sentence of 5 years. Count 4. Transporting a minor with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, carries a maximum sentence of 10 years. Count 5. Conspiracy to commit sex trafficking of minors, which carries a statutory maximum of 5 years in prison. And Count 6. Sex trafficking of minors, which carries a statutory maximum of 40 years in prison. Judge Nathan still reading the charge. Judge Nathan's charge readout almost over. It's 4:39. Unclear how much deliberation could occur today. Jurors was asked to be prepared to stay to 6 p.m., but we'll see. Should find out soon. Watch this thread. Judge Nathan: I'm sure if you listen to the views of your fellow jurors, give me a few minutes for a sidebar while you remain in the juror boxes. Everyone else, remain quiet. Ghislaine Maxwell is sitting all alone at the defense table. Judge Nathan: 5 alternate jurors can leave, but remain on call. They are jurors number 125, 149, 151, 152 and 170. The others you can begin to deliberate. Miss Williams will show you how to access the admitted exhibits. All rise. With jury gone, Judge Nathan: we'll wait to hear back from the juror. I want to thank the aide counsel. I learned a lot from you. Marshals take Maxwell out of the courtroom, but she'll be brought back in when the jurors came back in, or for any note they send. Update of 5:45 p.m. The jury has been sent up and will start deliberating December 21st at 9 p.m. Watch this site. How large is Maxwell's legal and other team? Watch this site, and #Maximum Maxwell. On October 29th and again on November 12th, Maxwell and the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York filed a flurry of motions in limine, heavily redacted. The government argued that trial exhibits are not public and will be withheld. Inner City Press opposed and opposes the continued secrecy. And CDC op-ed here. On December 16th, after a 3-day hiatus as Judge Nathan went to D.C. seeking to D-Circuit seat, Maxwell's defense began, with her executive assistant Simerly Espinoza. Inner City Press live tweeted here, 8:45 a.m. live stream here, podcast here. On the afternoon of December 17th, the defense rested, and Ghislaine Maxwell said there was no reason for her to testify because, she said, the government had not proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. After Eva Dubin, Inner City Press live tweeted here, podcast here, midday live stream here. On Saturday, December 18th, Judge Nathan held the charging conference, at which references to the defendant were changed to a more ladylike Miss Maxwell and foreign travel, and the word minor were dropped and replaced. Inner City Press live tweeted here, and below, pre-conference live stream here, podcast here. On December 10th, leading up to the U.S. resting of its case, Annie Farmer was cross-examined, then her ex-boyfriend and mother testified. Inner City Press live tweeted it here, podcast here, stand up, Gmac's sister, and circus. Again, where is the press opposition to all this sealing, and the decision maker? Inner City Press is covering the trial, and all that comes before and after it. Court case cast and Song I, Song 2, Song 3, 5th Song, November 27th Song, December 4th Song and December 11th Song. YouTube demonetized it. And December 18th Song. No ads. On October 18 the U.S. Attorney's Office opposed their request, saying that the voir dire questions should be asked by Judge Nathan, and that there should only be sidebars on sensitive questions such as those that relate to sexual abuse and media exposure. Full letter on Patreon here. In a conference on October 21 on the scheduling issues, Judge Nathan denied a request to seal. Inner City Press live tweeted it here, podcast here. On October 22 the draft jury questionnaire was unsealed and Inner City Press has immediately published it on its document cloud here, including have you or a family member ever supported, lobbied, petitioned, protested, or worked in any other manner for or against any laws, regulations, or organizations relating to sex trafficking, sex crimes against minors, sex abuse or sexual harassment? Photo here. After the death of Jeffrey Epstein in the MCC prison, on July 2 acting U.S. Attorney for the SDNY Audrey Strauss announced and unsealed an indictment of Maxwell on charges including sex trafficking and perjury. Inner City Press went to her press conference at the U.S. Attorney's Office and asked, doesn't charging Maxwell with perjury undercut any ability to use testimony from her against other, bigger wrongdoers? Periscope here at 23:07. Strauss replied that it is not impossible to use a perjurer's testimony, but how often does it work? At 3:30 p.m. on July 2 Maxwell appeared in the U.S. District Court for the District of New Hampshire, before Magistrate Judge Andrea K. Johnston. Inner City Press live tweeted it here. Also live tweeted bail denial of July 14. Here. In the July 3 media coverage of Maxwell, media all of the world used a video and stills from it of Maxwell speaking in front of a blue curtain, like here. What they did not mention is something Inner City Press has been asking the UN about, as under UNSG Antonio Guterres with his own sexual exploitation issues, exclusive video and audio, it got roughed up and banned from the UN. Ghislaine Maxwell had a ghoulish United Nations press conference, under the banner of the Terramar Project, here. On July 5, after some crowdsourcing, Inner City Press reported on another Ghislaine Maxwell use of the United Nations, facilitated by Italy's permanent representative to the UN official Nikhil Seth and Demir Dossal, who also let into the UN and in one case took money from convicted UN briber Aung Lap Seng, and Patrick Ho of SEFC China Energy, also linked to UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. At the Ghislaine Maxwell UN event, the UN Deputy Secretary-General was directly involved. List of some of the participants on Patreon here. Inner City Press has published a phone of Maxwell in the UN with Dossal, here, but the connection runs deeper. Dossal with 25 years of UN involvement was on Terramar's board of directors, one of only 5 directors, only 3 not related to Maxwell by blood and name. The directors, Ghislaine Maxwell, Christine Molina Maxwell, Stephen Haft, Christine Dennis and Amir Dossal. Inner City Press is publishing this full 990 on Patreon here. Dossal has operated through the UN Office of Partnership, with Antonio Guterres and his deputy Amina J. Mohammed, here, and the links to the world of UN bribery, including Antonio Guterres through the Gulbenkian Foundation, runs deeper. More to follow. Antonio Guterres claims he has zero tolerance for sexual exploitation, but covers it up and even participate in it. He should be forced to resign, and or have immunity waived. Terramar has been dissolved, even though Maxwell's former fundraiser, Director of Development Brian Urisic still lists the URL on his protected Twitter profile, also here. But now Inner City Press has begun to inquire into Ghislaine Maxwell's other United Nations connections, starting with this photograph of another day's, or at least another outfit's, presentation in the UN, here. While co-conspirator Antonio Guterres has had Inner City Press banned from any entry into the UN for 2 years and a day, this appears to be in the UN Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, chamber. We'll have more on this, and on Epstein and the UN. Watch this site. The case is US v. Maxwell, 20 CR 330, Nathan. To find out more, please follow the links on screen and in the description. Together, let's make sure justice is served.